Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called How to Save a Time-Limited Young Master. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! Your friends remain as your playmates until adulthood. Or that's what Zenon thought. In his bedroom, he expresses his gratitude for Herace's visit and asks her if there's something wrong. She gives him a bouquet of flowers, glad that he recovered better than expected. Moments later, Herace bids goodbye, alarming him. He walks towards her and leans in, asking her what's going on. She can't be his playmate forever and wishes to go on her own path. He tells her she'll die if she leaves his side, assuring her that his uncle won't let her go so easily. She insists she can fight back with her powers, but he argues that it doesn't appear when she needs it. Furious, she raises her voice and reminds him who caused her situation. He tries to calm her down, locking his hands to hers, and asks to stay by his side. He'll protect her. Herace thought she reincarnated as a side character in a novel, but how did it come to this? She reincarnated as Herace Lorca, daughter of the wealthy Viscount Lorca. She's always been showered with love and privilege, yet in that world, she's nothing more than an extra character. At least, that's what Herace thought. Until 3 years ago. As she walks to embroidery class, her father calls for her attention. Based on his expression, she has a bad feeling. He says he canceled her lessons to meet a new friend, asking her to keep it a secret from her mother. In the noble world, it may seem as a social gathering for children, but it's a way for heirs to form future alliances. But does it even apply to House Lorca? Herace asks which family she'll play with. It's House Yandere. She recalls how the Duke Yandere's son has been isolated from everyone else. In the carriage, she regrets dressing comfortably to meet the Duke's son, but her father assures her it's all right. Though, first impressions are everything. On the ride to House Yandere, meeting the Duke's son must be a turning point in the novel she's reincarnated to. He might be a supporting male aide. They arrive at House Yandere and are greeted by the butler. Viscount Lorca introduces Herace to him before taking his leave. As her father waves goodbye, she glares at him for leaving her alone. It's as if he's running away from something. The butler leads Herace to the garden, where the young master and his playmates are. She hears cries of help and screaming. Then, the butler announces her arrival to the young master, but she's stunned to see children running away. The young master, Zenon Yandere, casts numerous magical orbs. He's a complete lunatic! Zenon turns to her and invites her to play his game, assuring her it'll be fun. Herace stands up to him, saying that's not how friends play. If this is his way of playing, she refuses to join. She trembles in fear and demands to go home, but the staff ask her to reconsider. Zenon glares at the staff, signaling that she's allowed to leave. As she walks away, he finds her interesting. In the carriage, Herace voices her frustration. He looks normal, but acts so crazy. She swears never to be his playmate again. A week later, Herace is at her etiquette class when her father suddenly bursts through the door, demanding the lessons to end. Zenon wants to play with her alone. She refuses the play date and threatens her father that she'll tell her mom. As they argue in House Yandere's hallway, Viscount Lorca mentions the late Duke. House Yandere is a prestigious ducal family known for producing Mage Tower masters and magic swordsmen. Viscount Lorca pledged loyalty to them after the late Duke saved Herace. After the late Duke and Duchess's passing, Zenon, the rightful heir, was stripped of his position by Marquess Velx, the Duke's younger brother. I'm sure his uncle is the antagonist. Viscount Lorca says Herace can get through Zenon since she's a child blessed by God. He mentions Zenon doesn't have much time. He's isolated in the mansion because his body can't handle his strong magic. He also overuses his magic, shortening his lifespan. This leaves Herace no choice but to agree. Moments later, she waits outside the room, but suddenly Zenon appears and asks her what she's doing, startling her. He invites her inside, eager to see what game she has prepared. If it's boring, he'll return to his old violent game, and she must join. She offers to read him a book about a lady who saved herself from a tyrant king by telling him stories for 1,001 nights. Moments later, they argue about the Cinderella story. Herace then offers a drawing game. They must draw each other in the most different and opposite way. He agrees, and she swears to make him laugh. She grins at him, anticipating his reaction when he sees her drawing. Zenon notices her expression and assumes she's finished. He shows his drawing first, and he draws her so beautifully, leaving her speechless. She asks why he didn't draw her the opposite way, but he corrects her, saying he did, the opposite of ugly. He then asks to see her drawing. Embarrassed, she shoves her drawing at him and leaves. As she walks out, he checks her drawing and compliments her. A few days later, her father excitedly shows her portrait sent by Zenon. He wishes to display it, but she refuses. Their argument catches her mother's attention and asks who painted it, leaving them frozen. Herace confesses their plans to her mother and assures her that she'll see it through to the end. Then, her mother informs her that Isaac has come to visit, shocking Herace. He's supposed to take part in air training. She assures Herace that her father will handle her playdate with Zenon while she meets with Isaac. Moments later, Isaac happily greets her and asks for updates about her life. She tells him about House Yandere, which worries him. He offers to accompany her on her next playdate and assures her there won't be a problem. A week later, Zenon isn't thrilled to see an unexpected guest. Isaac introduces himself as Isaac of Count Velasquez's house and asks to join their playdate. Zenon agrees, but insists on choosing the game and wants no complaints. Isaac happily accepts, but Herace can feel the tension in the air. It's uncomfortable. They head outside and ride their horses. Today's game is hunting. Concerned, Herace asks Isaac not to push himself too hard and to play it safe. Behind them, Zenon grits his teeth and is determined to win the game. Then the butler blows the horns and they ride off, leaving Herace hoping nothing goes wrong. Oh, so there is tension between them just for a little game? As they ride their horses, Herace wonders who to cheer for. Suddenly, the butler shouts that Zenon caught the prey. Then, Isaac kills a boar, and Herace cheers for them both. Without warning, a boar charges at Isaac, knocking him from his horse. Herace rushes to his aid, relieved he isn't gravely injured. From behind, Zenon finds the game boring and walks out, unconcerned by Isaac's injury. Herace turns to Isaac and asks the butler to bring Isaac to the physician. Embarrassed, Isaac assures her he's fine, but Herace scolds him. He turns slightly red and brushes it off. Then, Herace thinks of Zenon and finds a way to meet him after he had walked out. She makes an excuse of forgetting her notebook in the drawing room. Isaac offers to accompany her, but she refuses, telling him to go home first after finishing his treatment. A maid tries to help her, but Herace asks where Zenon is. The maid points to the central garden labyrinth, where he usually goes when he's in a bad mood. She heads to the garden and is fascinated by the rose-covered arches. Suddenly, transparent blue fish appear. Could it be magic? The fish collide with her face, and she sees Zenon leaning against the fountain. He asks her what she's doing and where Isaac is. He's so cute when he sulks. She asks him what he's doing all alone, though it's clear he's playing by himself. He casts more magical fish, but they're nothing more than just chunks of mana. She grows more fascinated and tells him if he had shown his beautiful power to his playmates, he would have gotten along with them. He turns to her and asks if they've grown closer by seeing the scenery of his magic. She smiles and says they have. As the sun sets, they don't realize how quickly time has passed. From that day on, Herace felt a small part of his heart open to her. Until the next morning. The next day, Herace is refused entry into his mansion. Concerned, the coachman offers to take Herace home instead, but she refuses. She tells the coachman to return to House Lorca. She plans to climb the cement wall, but it's too high. Moments later, she manages to climb up, only to hear House Leoneric's staff calling out for her. She hides in the garden and overhears them saying she needs to be sent back home, but she's determined to see Zenon. She crawls through the garden when she bumps her head. It's a maid. The maid gives her a smile and tells Herace to follow her, leading her into the mansion. Oh, the maid is so kind. Herace knocks on the door and enters, only to see the room filled with wetland plants. It's like a giant humidifier. As she walks in the room, she tries to find Zenon. She sees Zenon in bed, groaning in pain. Suddenly, a maid and the physician enter his room, and he still hasn't regained consciousness. The maid tells Herace that Zenon was looking forward to her visit, but he hasn't been well since that morning. He just didn't want her to see him sick. She wonders why they're only giving him standard treatments instead of using healing magic. Suddenly, Zenon wakes up but asks Herace to leave. He holds her hand and asks her to leave again before drifting back to sleep. Concerned, she offers to stay and take care of Zenon. She sits by his side, but soon feels wary. Leaning on his bed, she drifts off to sleep and dreams of a man holding a purple stone, declaring he will destroy both of them. Herace wakes up from her nightmare and looks for Zenon, but is greeted by her father instead. He tells her she's been asleep for a whole day. She must have been worn out from taking care of Zenon. Something doesn't sit right with Herace. She doesn't remember going home. Her father sits beside her and she tells him about House Yandere not giving Zenon magical treatment. Her father sighs and explains that Zenon is diagnosed with a terminal illness. Confused, she asks if the healing magic is useless for curing his illness. Viscount Lorca explains that Zenon's condition would worsen if they force more mana into his body. Herace recalls Zenon using his magic to cast the magical fish for her and realizes he got sick because of her. Viscount Lorca assures her it's not her fault and asks her to be a good friend to Zenon. She agrees, though he's shortening his life every time he meets his playmates. Moments later, her father remarks on her slumber, and she tries to recall her nightmare. 2 days later, Zenon lies in bed, thinking Herace is too upset to visit. Suddenly, the butler knocks and says that Herace has arrived, startling Zenon. He jumps out of bed and opens the door. Seeing his messy hair, Herace greets him and touches his face, assuming he just woke up. Flustered, he brushes her hand away and she teases him. OMG, they're so cute! Before the butler leaves, Herace asks to prepare what her maid brought for Zenon. Moments later, Zenon puts on a dreadful expression upon seeing the apple soup she brought. Herace eats the soup whenever she's sick and decides to bring some to him. He takes a bite and sticks out his tongue. It tastes like mint-flavored toothpaste. She tells him not to eat it if he doesn't like it. Then she asks him why he kicked her out and apologizes for making him sick. He replies that there's no point in saving his power. He won't live long anyway. He adds that trying to extend his life by saving his power is a waste of time. So she shouldn't visit him after using his magic, but she refuses to obey. She keeps asking about his pain, calling him young master, but he interrupts her, insisting she call him Zenon. Then, she shares her regret for falling asleep the other day instead of staying by his side. Flustered by her kindness, Zenon calls her an idiot, infuriating her. She leans closer to him and tells him she's serious. Their eyes meet, and Zenon feels his heart beating faster. She asks him more questions and notices his face turning red. Knowing she won't leave him alone otherwise, he finally answers. Whenever he uses his mana, he feels his heart being crushed. However, every doctor says he's perfectly fine. His family is a lineage of powerful magic tower masters, and the family head's power is supposed to define their strength. But he, the family head, collapses every time. He adds that he's been isolated in the estate with protective spells and traps to avoid collapsing, making Herace worried. She thinks the Duke left him a safeguard, but Zenon didn't know how to use his mana before the Duke's passing. Herace bans Zenon from using his magic to prevent getting sick, but he refuses. He doesn't want to play Herace's boring games. She argues back, saying there are various ways to have fun without magic. He looks up at her and asks if she'll visit him every day to teach him. She nods, and they laugh together. Herace realizes he isn't the insufferable brat she thought he was, yet she finds it suspicious that he's kept isolated in the estate. A few hours later, Herace returns home and quickly grabs her father to speak with him. She asks him why Zenon is confined to the mansion, but he doesn't know either. He adds that Zenon has learned how to handle more mana, even through the pain, and assures Herace that he's finding a way to improve his condition. Her father shifts the topic to the children's banquet on Saturday, asking if she's ready. The banquet is a social event to show off their children and assess potential heirs. On the day of the banquet, Herace receives unwanted attention from the adults for being Zenon's playmate. She finds a place to hide, but accidentally bumps into a girl. It's the main character of the game. Oh, so they're in a game, not a novel. Princess Sienna is the protagonist of a princess-making game, where you raise a girl from the fairy world. Herace quickly realizes she's inside the game she once played before reincarnating. She remembers the game's condition to reach the princess ending, the protagonist's regression after a bad ending. Sienna fails to save everyone and meets a tragic death. After reaching this ending, Sienna starts a second playthrough at level 150, the regression. Once she regresses, she becomes corrupted, which doesn't seem to be the case right now. Sienna looks very well. Herace introduces herself and asks Sienna if she's trying to become a princess, leaving Sienna confused. Herace clenches on her dress. If Sienna reaches the bad ending, that entire world will regress with her. To reach the bad ending, Sienna has to earn the Duke's hatred, and he must have the magic crystal. She begins to recall her nightmare and feels unwell, remembering the magic crystal was Zenon's heart. She collapses, and Sienna calls for help. A few hours later, Herace regains consciousness and Sienna worriedly greets her. Herace stands up and inspects Sienna, wondering where her stat level is. Sienna grows worried, but Herace continues to scan her, assuming her social stat is low and her stress stat is high. The chances of Sienna becoming a princess is slim, so she swears to prevent the bad ending from happening. Her survival depends on it. A few days later, Herace heads to the house Yandere and wonders if Zenon is destined to die from his illness. Lost in thought, she recalls the magic crystal only reacts to his bloodline, meaning it's Marquess Velx. After Zenon's death, the title will pass to him. Everything will start with Zenon's death, so she must save him. She arrives at House Yandere and notices Marquess Velx's carriage outside the estate. She heads to the office and knocks, but Zenon asks her to stay out for a moment. Marquess Velx turns and asks about the commotion. Then he notices Herace and asks who she is. He looks intimidating. Herace curtsies and introduces herself. Marquess Velx remarks on her resemblance to Viscount Lorca. Upset, Zenon reminds her he asked her to leave. Unfazed, Herace tells Marquess Velx she's Duke Zenon Leoneric's playmate, emphasizing his title. He turns to Zenon and asks if he's still overusing his mana, but Herace answers for him, saying he's doing things differently for the sake of his lifespan. Marquess Velx chuckles, recalling Zenon's days are numbered, and remarks his health is one less thing to worry about. Is that how he talks to sick people? Furious, she declares she will save him. If he dies, she'll follow him, leaving Zenon speechless. Knowing his heart will be made into the crystal if he dies, she must protect him. Marquess Velx laughs hysterically. All this time, he thought Zenon was plotting against him and that Herace will be useful in the future. He takes his leave, swearing he'll meet Herace again. Herace sighs in relief and scolds Zenon for letting Marquess Velx in. But he argues, saying Marquess Velx has spies everywhere. He asks Herace to clarify what she meant about following him after death. She excuses it as wishing him a long and healthy life, but he refuses to believe that's all. Then, she shifts the topic to apple soup, leaving him flustered. Starting that week, she must find a way to save him. A few days later, Herace heads to the plaza to find a merchant offering rare items and valuable information. She spots the merchant and approaches her. She wants to buy CH11, known as Tear of the Fairy, a cheat item in the game. Based on the merchant's surprise reaction, she must have it. The merchant refuses to sell it to her, claiming Herace is the key to a bigger problem. The merchant warns her for walking so openly unlike the rest of her kind. Her kind? She tells Herace that there are people searching for her and advises her not to let them find her. Oh my, what does she mean? The next day, Herace recalls the merchant's advice. Cautious, she wants to wear a protective bracelet to keep her safe. The maid reminds Herace about the Founding Day Festival and the competition for Flower Maiden, but she's not joining. The competition selects the most beautiful lady of the year, a charm stats battle. She heads out, determined to buy CH11 and find another way to save Zenon. At House Leoneric, the maid informs Herace that Marquess Velx visited before her arrival, and Zenon is in the Labyrinth Garden. He's probably sulking after his uncle tormented him. Herace meets with Zenon at the garden and tries to cheer him up by talking, but he doesn't say a word. She mentions about the Founding Day Festival and asks what he does during the festival, but he usually stays home. Seeing his gloomy expression, she invites to go out with him. Zenon mentions about the flower mating contest, but Herace tells him she won't be joining. There are many pretty ladies out there. She wishes to spend time and watch the parade with him instead. However, his uncle has spies around the estate. She excitedly says they'll sneak out with the help of the maids and makes a plan. Zenon notices how happy and comfortable he is with Herace. During the Founding Day, Herace and Zenon hop onto the carriage and head to the festival. Once they arrive, Herace takes Zenon's hand and heads to Festival Boulevard. Suddenly, they both hear someone crying. It's Sienna asking Herace to save her. Oh no, what happened? Herace notices Sienna's bare feet and asks if she did something to be chased down. Sienna clings to her arms as she explains, and Herace notices Zenon's glare at Sienna. Sienna begins to explain how she ran away from Soma and her father from the flower mating competition, and quickly realized she almost blurted out the fairy realm. Herace asks who Soma is. He is their loyal butler despite being from a fallen noble house. Then she shares how working is easier than competing at the contest. Herace quickly realized she's one of those players who focuses on building stamina and strength to invest in expensive art training for high-tier ending. Zenon reminds Herace that she came to hang out with him, but Sienna begs not to be left behind. She suggests doing something better than the flower viewing, to meet Medici, a genius astrologer from the underworld who calculates current stats and predicts the closest ending. It was supposedly Zenon and Herace's date. Herace's eyes gleam with excitement, but Zenon refuses to let her go. He tries to talk her out of it, but Herace asks if he'll protect her if something happens, flustering him. Sienna jokes that Zenon isn't strong enough to protect Herace, and they both begin to argue. Herace takes a closer look at Zenon's face, noticing his facial features and making him shy. He shouldn't be seen as weak in the underworld. Herace declares that they're all going to see Medici, and Sienna and Zenon must get along. Then they walk through an alley but are stopped by a man, telling them to turn around. Herace tries to explain, but the man interrupts her, yelling at them to leave at once. They have no choice but to obey. Herace realizes the underworld needs evil high stats, so it must be Sienna and Zenon's insufficient evil stats. They decide to leave, and as they walk, Herace asks Sienna about Medici's return. She replies that Medici returns on festivals, and sometimes he doesn't return at all. Sienna quickly apologizes for their failed adventure, but Herace assures her it's all right. She turns to Zenon, whose attention is elsewhere. Suddenly, Soma calls out for Sienna. Herace recognizes Soma's face illustrations. He tends to be strict but deeply cares for Sienna. In the lore, he even followed her to the fairy realm. Sienna tries to explain to Soma, but he turns to Herace and thanks her for her help before quickly taking Sienna back. Herace turns to Zenon and suggests calling it a day, but seeing his disappointment, she suggests going to the market. Suddenly, Zenon grabs her hand and tells her to run. They run along the street as Zenon takes the lead. Herace asks what's going on, but her protective bracelet fell off her wrist. From behind, a masked man watches them run. Moments later, Herace is out of breath and asks Zenon for an explanation and mentions her bracelet. He says his uncle's spy has been watching them and suggests going back. In the carriage, she worries about Zenon being punished, but he reassures her and gives her a bracelet. He says he got it at the market, but couldn't add more charms. She thanks Zenon and asks if it looks good on her. He confirms. She becomes sad thinking about their day out and wonders if she'll ever take him out again. During the night at Marquess Velx's manor, the spy reports about Zenon and Herace attempting to go to the underworld. Enraged at Herace, he orders his spy to inform the church they found their sacrificial offering. What does he mean by that? A few days later, a knight refuses Herace's entry. The coachman says Zenon might have been disciplined, shocking Herace. She asks House Leoneric's butler, who confirms it. He assures Herace that Zenon enjoyed his first founding festival. She asks when his punishment will end, but he can't say and apologizes for not welcoming her properly. She returns home and tells her father while wondering if she's the reason for his punishment. Enraged, Viscount Lorca decides to look into the matter himself. Herace grows sad, wondering if she'll see him again, then shakes off the thought. Viscount Lorca suggests adding more dance classes for Herace to do in her free time, and she happily agrees. The next day, during dance class, Herace sees Sienna struggling to dance. Sienna's eyes light up when she sees Herace and says she missed her. They decide to chat outside the dancing room, pointing out Sienna's dancing problem. Sienna explains she can't waste the lessons her dad sent her in. Her stress stats are high. Herace wonders how the player is managing Sienna's high stress stats and offers Sienna help. High stress stats lowers efficiency, so she must help her out. She takes Sienna's hand and teaches her how to dance, encouraging her. Usually, others see Sienna as pathetic for making mistakes. Herace makes her feel confident. After 30 minutes, Sienna beams with joy as she finally masters the dance steps. She then invites Herace for dinner at her place, saying every act of kindness must be repaid. Though it's rather sudden, Herace sees this as an opportunity to learn about the player's style, so she agrees. Moments later, they arrive at Sienna's humble home. It has that fallen noble vibe. Sienna eagerly invites her in and calls for Soma, but to her surprise, someone else has been waiting for her. It's Sienna's friend. Herace is shocked and quickly realizes who he is. He's the Crown Prince Blake Dalbert, one of the main characters, and becomes Sienna's partner and who eventually takes down Duke Leoneric. He's the heir to the Empire, and ever since the Second Queen rose in status, he became an outcast, the story claims. But in reality, Blake is unbound by his status, and the Second Queen has been struggling to put him on the throne. Herace knows he wanders around as a commoner, but she didn't expect him and Sienna to be so close already. Suddenly, Soma comes in with a bag of groceries, acknowledging Herace and Blake, but the latter as young Bill. While Soma scolds Sienna for not preparing tea, Blake assumes Herace as a noble lady, unlike Sienna, who's snubbed into high society. Herace asks who he is, pretending to be ignorant, and he introduces himself as Bill, an Information Guild low-tier runner. Instead of shaking his hand, she taps his hand with her fan and spares him the long introduction of a noble lady. He remarks on Herace's demeanor to Sienna, but Sienna is on Herace's side. As they drink tea, he shares about having no tea in the northern forest, making Sienna worry that he went to the dungeon forest again. But it was worth it. He takes out the tear of the fairy, or CH11, shocking Herace. He says it's a fake CH11 since the real ones are probably kept in the Queen's palace. Rare items sold by wandering peddlers usually come from remnants when dragons relocate their nests, and Blake took it from their loot pile. Even if it's a fake, it could still be a cheat item. Herace asks Sienna for another cup of coffee, and while she's away, she talks to Blake about wanting the CH11 necklace. He teases, saying something so rare is priceless. She blackmails Bill for distributing forgeries and mentions his real name, leaving him stunned. He tries to play it cool by acting ignorant, but she continues, prompting him to give her the necklace. She didn't expect him to give it so easily, but she can finally save Zenon. However, he tells her nothing comes free. Although not sure what he wants from her, until then, Herace owes him. As long as she has the CH11, she agrees. As she drinks her tea, she reassures herself not to worry as the Crown Prince doesn't have many events, so she won't see him. Until 1 month later, she is chosen as Blake's partner in Prince Aster's birthday banquet. How is that worth for such a rare item? Viscount Lorca is in disbelief, but a small part of Herace hoped it was from Zenon. It's been a month since she last saw him. She considers declining, but there's no stopping her father from perfecting everything. Remembering to pay back the CH11, she has no choice but to accept. At the birthday banquet, Herace is picked up by Blake in a flashy carriage and greets her warmly. She greets him coldly, not wanting to draw attention, but she'll make an exception for the necklace. They get on the carriage and Blake finds Herace charming, but she doesn't remember making a first good impression. Lost in thought, she thought he stayed away from society because of the pressure from the royal palace, yet Blake seems so relaxed. At the ballroom, Blake draws less attention than Herace expected, which is good. He asks her what they should do, but she doesn't know. She's always in a corner during events. He suggests they stick together since neither of them know anyone. From afar, Herace and Blake spot Zenon, and he is surprised to see them. Seeing Herace's arm linked with Blake's, he glares at her. Blake introduces Herace as his partner, but Zenon interrupts, saying she's his retainer. Then, Blake suggests they should dance, alarming Zenon. Suddenly, the guests exchange whispers as they recognize Zenon and Herace, but don't know who Blake is. Blake asks Herace again to dance with him, calling her princess, which catches her off guard. As they dance, Blake asks about her relationship with Zenon, noting the glare he gave earlier. As a new song starts, he asks for a second dance, but a guest interrupts them, asking if Blake is the crown prince, which draws plenty of attention. To escape, she agrees to dance, but Zenon interrupts, asking Herace to dance with him instead. Blake and Zenon argue about who Herace should dance with, putting her in an awkward position. Who should she dance with? No matter who she dances with, it'll still put her in a bad light. Blake and Zenon extend their hands, asking who she's going to dance with. Suddenly, they announce Prince Aster's arrival, and Herace disappears from the awkward situation. From above, Prince Aster comments on his banquet, with Marquess Velx beside him. He turns to Marquess Velx, noticing how worried he is about Zenon, always keeping an eye on him. The Marquess admits he's watching one of God's little lambs. He means Herace. Then, the Duke clears his throat and expresses his gratitude to the guests for coming to Prince Aster's birthday. As he speaks, Herace takes the chance to leave the ballroom. Moments later, she walks through the quiet and dim halls. She walks toward what seems to be an abandoned wing. She notices the doodles on the walls, only to realize they're not doodles, they're murals. She wonders what they mean, but suddenly a voice speaks, frightening her. It's the Queen. The Queen, however, lets her know she noticed her, and assumes Herace is a guest of Prince Aster. Herace didn't expect to meet Queen Isabel. Herace curtsies as the Queen questions her, explaining she was wandering around. The queen replies she shouldn't be there and admits that she isn't supposed to be there either. Herace is shocked to discover there's an area of the palace that even the queen isn't allowed to enter. She asks where she is, and the queen replies that she's in Crown Prince Blake's residence. Herace assumes Blake is being bullied inside the palace, which is why he sneaks out. The queen reads Herace's thoughts through her face and understands her assumptions. She wasn't supposed to reveal Blake's residence, yet admits Herace's presence made her feel at ease. Her words made Herace remember it's one of the queen's scripted lines, but only says it when the player raises her favorability stats. Why is she saying it to Herace? In the game, you'll most likely meet high-ranking characters if your elegance and sociability stats are high. That system shouldn't apply to Herace, so why did the queen say that to her? The queen asks for her name and compliments her beautiful eyes that shimmers like gold under the light. She talks with Herace and admits she was just exaggerating about Blake's residence. He goes there to play. Herace realizes that the rumors of Queen Isabel supporting Blake as the heir is true. The queen says it's a blessing to serve such a sacred being. What does she mean by that? Herace plans to get hints about the game, but the maid informs the queen His Majesty is looking for her. Before leaving, she asks Herace to pretend their conversation never existed. Herace feels disappointed she couldn't ask more questions, but something about the queen feels off. Herace thought she knew everything in the game, but what if the real clue lies in the endings she never reached? The next day, Herace visits Sienna. She plans to raise Sienna's stats. Maybe she can reach the princess ending without the regressing. She meets Soma and asks if Count Sales is home, leaving Soma confused. Didn't he greet her at the door? He remarks how tired Herace is from the banquet. In the game, the player views the story from a first-person perspective as Sienna's father, Count Sales. That's why they never saw what the player's character looked like. She wonders if she'll ever meet him, but it seems like only Sienna and Soma can see him. Then, Herace offers Sienna a gift, Blake's necklace, CH11. Sienna looks disgusted seeing it. It doesn't suit Herace, so maybe it'll suit Sienna. As they lock it around her neck, Herace whispers that the necklace can grant wishes, though Sienna doesn't believe it. She encourages Sienna to wish for something. Sienna bows her head and wishes to become a better version of herself. The necklace floats, shrieking yellow light around the room. Moments later, Herace asks how Sienna feels, but Sienna says the necklace disappeared, making Herace cry in despair. Well, game items do disappear after you use them. In disbelief, she wonders why the necklace disappeared. She asks Sienna if she feels any different and suggests dancing to test if her wish came true. It couldn't have vanished for nothing. Sienna's stats probably increased. Sienna does so and immediately notices the improvement in her, although Herace still feels devastated for losing the necklace. Sienna tries to cheer her up by offering to get her another, but it wasn't just a necklace, it was her CH11. A few days later, Herace thinks about the upcoming Underworld event. Suddenly, Emma, her maid, hands her an invitation to a tea party from the Langbert mansion. She excitedly gets up. Does this mean Zenon's punishment is over? Viscount Lorca says Marquess Velx fell into his own trap. Prince Aster sent a royal tutor to Langbert Mansion after noticing how the Marquess kept an eye on Zenon at the banquet. Finally, things are going back to normal. Excited, Herace asks Emma to prepare her new yellow dress with matching accessories, and wonders how Zenon is doing. On the day of the party, Herace is all dressed up. Emma says she's on a different level than Zenon's other playmates, so she must stand out. At Langbert Mansion, the butler welcomes and remarks on how beautiful she is. He leads her to where Zenon is, mentioning how he's been expecting her. In a room, Zenon is seated between two playmates. Herace greets them, but he ignores her. He invited her, yet he's ignoring her? She approaches Zenon and asks if she did something to make him mad, but he doesn't answer. Suddenly, the girl beside him questions why Herace is speaking to Zenon that way. Zenon says Herace is his retainer, and the girl quickly realizes she's Viscount Lorca's daughter, closing her fan. She then introduces herself as Jude Wells, Zenon's childhood friend. He has a childhood friend? Herace remembers Zenon's childhood isn't mentioned in the game, but why is getting all worked up because of Jude? Jude remarks how young Herace is to hang out with them. Herace tries to defend herself, but Zenon interrupts, saying she's just one of the playmates he invited, leaving her shocked. She clenches her fist as anger builds up in her body. So she's just one of the kids he got stuck with? Yet all this time she's been trying to save his life. Herace leaves and apologizes on her way out. She walks out of the Langbert mansion, but Zenon doesn't come after her. She swears not to return to his mansion again. Herace is the one who's sulking now. A few days later, Viscount Lorca orders Herace to deliver health supplements. The butler asks if she wishes to see Zenon, but that's the last thing she wants. In the corner of the garden, Zenon leans against a tree, regretting letting Herace leave the mansion. He recalls his anger at Blake during the banquet and took it out on Herace instead. Jude approaches Zenon, thinking he might be lonely, suggesting he should use his magic on Herace. He warns her to stay out of his business. Then suddenly, he spots Herace and walks towards her. He tries to apologize, but Jude interrupts them. Herace glares at them. So they've been spending time together. Is she discarded now? Jude remarks that Herace wanders into Zenon's mansion without permission. Herace admits it and formally apologizes, catching Zenon off guard. Jude teases their bickering while fanning herself in the scorching sun, asking for a parasol. But no servants are around. Herace offers to fetch one for her, but Zenon tries to stop her. As long as she prevents that world from resetting, nothing else matters. Moments later, Herace comes back running with the parasol. She plans to give the parasol and leave immediately. Suddenly, she trips on a rock and falls into the pond as Zenon calls out for her. In a panic, Zenon grabs Herace's arm and pulls her out of the pond, only to realize it isn't that deep and she can stand. Herace is all wet and embarrassed. She shoves the parasol at Zenon and attempts to leave. Knowing it's his fault, he stops her to apologize, but the butler and maid interrupt, concerned. Despite the situation, Jude fusses over the wet parasol. Zenon grabs a towel and wraps it around Herace, telling her to dry off first to prevent catching a cold. She recalls his hurtful words. His kindness won't fool her. She asks to go home, but he doesn't allow it, ordering the maid to change her into dry clothes. She refuses to listen, while Zenon stares at his hand. The same soft, small hand he pulled from the pond was the same hand dancing with Blake, and it still makes him mad. He really was jealous. Moments later, Herace is changed into dry clothes. When the maid tells her that Zenon is waiting in the parlor, she refuses to see him and leaves. Once she meets Medici and knows Sienna's ending, she won't care about Zenon's heart or the regression issue. From that day on, she's officially going off the rails. During the night, Herace returns to the alley near the underworld. However, leaving Zenon wasn't enough to raise her evil stats. A boy blocks her way, telling her to get lost, but she refuses. She came to see Lou Triet, a high-risk figure from the underworld. In the game, he always corrupted Sienna with his bad influence, raising her evil stat. She became so corrupt that temple visits couldn't reduce her evil stat. Apparently, the Marquess family of Nardian, his blood relatives, also hated his behavior. Before, their primary heir had a riding accident, leaving Lou next in line for the throne. Before that, they sent Lou a tutor as a backup plan. He quickly realizes Herace is sent by the Nardians. She confirms it and introduces herself as his tutor. She'll put him into shape. She always hated how he corrupted Sienna, but now he's going to help her raise her evil stats. Lou stares at Herace as if she sprouted another head, utterly baffled by her outrageous claim of being his tutor. The idea strikes him as absurd. In his eyes, she's just a naive girl. What could she possibly teach him? But Herace isn't so easily dismissed. She plays her final card, bringing up Lou's entry in the upcoming Harvest Festival, where he plans to compete. The mention sparks something inside him. Defeating his half-brother, proving himself before the Nardians, that's the fire that drives Lou. Suddenly, Herace's ridiculous proposal doesn't seem so easily ignored. Still, he refuses to give her an answer, choosing instead to walk away. Before leaving, he warns her not to linger where she doesn't belong if she wants to stay out of trouble. Herace, however, refuses to back down. Determined to win him over, she follows his trail until it leads her to a tavern. A place brimming with noise, secrets, and the weight of too many stories. It bristles with curious eyes the moment she steps inside. The men stare at her as though she doesn't belong in their world, yet the tavern keeper, kind enough, welcomes her. Unbeknownst to her, a bitter old drunk broods in the corner, fuming at her presence for shattering the tavern's mood. Stumbling to his feet, he staggers toward her, itching for a fight, his judgment blurred by alcohol. But before his malice can land, the tavern door creaks open, and in strides Lou Triet. His reputation precedes him. The drunk pales, fear hollowing him out as Lu approaches. A single threat is enough to send the man fleeing into the night. Lu turns to Herace with a look that needs no words. "I warned you." Shocked yet grateful, Herace admires his commanding presence. In return, she offers him her help. Any help she can give. For the first time, Lu hesitates. Herace's promise reminds him of his ailing younger sister, bedridden for months. With quiet resolve, he tells Herace to find a doctor who can save her. Without a second thought, Herace agrees, vowing to do whatever it takes to help him and his sister. With an uneasy truce between them, Herace follows Lu to his home and sees his little sister. From behind, she notices a subtle shift in him. His hardened exterior softens at the thought of his sister. Beneath his rough facade, she glimpses not the feared Lu Triette, but a wary brother carrying the weight of love and guilt. Inside, Herace finally meets Elena. The girl lies unconscious, her face pale, her body fragile, as though clinging to life by the thinnest thread. Herace's heart twists at the sight, sorrow welling as she takes in the innocence of Elena's peaceful, suffering face. Lu then confesses the truth of his sister's condition. Elena is poisoned. The drink meant to kill him was mistakenly taken by his sister. The venom, known as samsara, the poison of reincarnation, is a deadly weapon crafted for assassination. To be reborn, one must first die, and that cruel fate hovers over Elena. The only reason she still breathes is because Lu had stopped her before she consumed the entire drink. Yet the memory tears him apart as guilt gnaws at his soul. Moved, Herace asks carefully about the poison, but as Lu speaks, her thoughts drift to Zenon and the heavy burdens they all carry. A pang of conscience strikes her. She cannot use their pain for her own ends. Not this time. She silently vows to help Elena with all her heart. Reaching out, she places her hand on Elena, hoping to offer comfort. But the moment she touches her, the bracelet Zenon gave her pulses with an electrifying energy. Shock floods through her, and then the impossible happens. Elena stirs. Lu rushes to her side, eyes wide with desperation and hope. When his sister weakly whispers his name, relief crashes over him like a tide. He clutches her hand, trembling, overwhelmed by the miracle. Herace stands nearby, joy mixing with unease. She cannot ignore the strange truth that the bracelet may have awakened Elena. As she quietly excuses herself, Lu follows, pressing her for an answer. Was it her who healed his sister? At a loss, Herace blurts that it was divine blessing, insisting she's only a tutor before quickly steering away from the subject and slipping out. Lu stays behind, tending to Elena, while Herace walks the streets outside, her thoughts in turmoil. The memory of the bracelet's surge lingers. Then she notices something new, a faint mark etching itself into her wrist. What does this mark mean? And why does it feel like the beginning of something far greater than she imagined? Questions swirl in Herace's mind as she wanders aimlessly, still shaken by what happened with Elena. Her wrist glowed when she reached out. Was she truly the one who healed her? Could Elena's awakening be an alteration of destiny itself? The thought chills her. If fate has shifted, what price will her body pay for meddling with the future? Fear coils within her, yet one answer echoes in her heart. She must seek out Medici. Days pass before Herace gathers the courage to step beyond her fear. Today, during the Harvest Festival, she resolves to find out the truth. On her way, she stumbles across the arena where the cheers of the crowd rise like thunder. Isaac's promise to claim the trophy flickers in her memory, and so does Lu. Drawn by curiosity, she enters, but what she witnesses stirs more than interest as Sienna unleashes a dazzling display of magic, her power painting the air with brilliance. Filled with pride, Herace cannot help but cheer, her voice ringing out until Sienna's eyes meet hers, a radiant smile exchanged between them. Then Isaac steps forward, warming up for his match, and the crowd roars anew. But Herace's focus drifts elsewhere. Among the spectators, a peculiar man catches her attention. His neck tattoo bears the same mysterious mark etched into her wrist. A jolt of dread runs through her. Danger is close. Determined to uncover the truth, she slips away, following the stranger while the match begins without her. The trail leads her down into a shadowed basement where the air grows thick with menace. There, cloaked figures form a circle around a platform, their presence radiating an ominous energy. Herace presses closer, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Then a voice cuts through the air, one she knows all too well. She spins, eyes widening. It belongs to Zenon's butler. The revelation rocks her to the core. The old man she thought so unassuming now stands at the center of a dark secret. Herace gasps, frozen in disbelief, as Zenon's butler asserts his authority before the cloaked men, dismissing them. Memories of his warm, smiling face flood her mind, but the truth cuts through like a blade. Every grin was a mask. Standing before her now is his unveiled wicked soul. As she retreats in horror, her foot strikes a tin can. The metallic clang echoes through the basement, slicing through the tense air. The men turn at once, voices rising in alarm, searching for the intruder. One of them draws near when suddenly rough hands seize her from behind. Darkness swallows her. After quite some time, Herace stirs awake, head heavy, trying to piece together the fragments of what happened. Lifting her gaze, she finds herself staring at Bill, the crown prince. The sight stuns her. Around them, flames have reduced the building to rubble, its charred remains still smoldering in the air. Confused, she asks Bill to know what happened. Bill explains that the cloaked figures were heretics, and that he had been investigating the scene for the guild. His calm revelation only deepens her unease. When Bill prepares to leave, Herace stops him. If she truly wants to uncover the truth and protect Zenon, she cannot let this chance slip away. She asks to accompany him, and though reluctant, Bill concedes. Their journey takes them to a hidden cabin deep in the forest. As they step inside, a dagger greets Bill without hesitation. Herace freezes, breath caught in her throat, but Bill reacts with practiced ease, as if this lethal welcome is all too familiar. From the shadows emerges a striking woman with long dark hair. She introduces herself as Andrea Bigelow. As Bill discusses his mission, he instead shifts his focus to Herace, introducing her to Andrea. What he witnessed earlier lingers in his mind. With the invisibility spell, no one should have seen them. Yet one of the cloaked men had looked directly at them, as though Herace's presence pierced through the magic. Stranger still was her unsettling behavior and her eyes. Her eyes had gleamed with a brilliance that was not of this world. To Bill's eyes, Herace's gaze, tone, and very presence seems unnatural, as though she has fallen under a spell. Unease coils in his chest. Then, without warning, her energy flares, wild and uncontrollable, igniting into flames that consume the building around them. That is how the fire begins, a blaze born from her own power. Yet now, as he looks at her, Herace appears innocent with no memory of what she's done. Andrea carries on with her sharp words, but when she mentions Marquess Velks, Herace's ears ring. A spark of recognition stirs, and she realizes Andrea may be walking the same path she is. Seizing the moment, Herace proposes an alliance, an exchange of knowledge that could bring them closer to the truth. Bill resists. He cannot bear the thought of Herace diving headlong into danger. But her resolve does not waver. Protecting Zenon means everything to her. If she loses him, she will lose herself. Fear cannot outweigh love, and that fierce devotion drives her forward. Faced with her determination, Bill and Andrea yield, agreeing to let her in. Herace then unveils what she witnessed in the basement, the cloaked men, the gathering, and most of all, the shocking involvement of Zenon's butler. Andrea listens with keen interest, her smile sharp with amusement. At last, she leans closer and reveals her real identity. She is a fairy, entrusted with guarding the gate that separates the human world from the realm of the fairies. The weight of Herace's unsettling behavior lingers all the way to the wooden cabin. What truth is she still hiding? Inside, Andrea presses her about what she saw in the basement. Herace confesses that she glimpsed familiar faces. Baron Diane, Viscount Aroyd, Baron Maxwell, and even Count Infanta. Andrea then unveils a darker truth. Marquess and his cult are known as the Kashua Order, the same group responsible for ruthless attacks against the fairies. At the heart of this sinister order stands Marquess, the very man Herace strives to shield Zenon from. Andrea pieces it together. She and Herace share the same enemy. Herace begins to grasp the enormity of the threat. The Kashua Order is not just dangerous. It is far larger and more powerful than she ever imagined. Yet with Andrea and the Crown Prince at her side, a flicker of reassurance takes root. Whatever dangers lie ahead, she is determined to face them, for Zenon's sake. But then, her heart jolts. Medici, she nearly forgot her original purpose. She sprints to find him, only to arrive in an empty space. Medici is gone. Days later, gathering her courage, Herace visits Zenon's residence. The quiet hallway leads her past the servants' quarters, where a silly idea sparks. A neatly folded uniform catches her eye. If she does it, she can slip into disguise and uncover the truth about Zenon's arrogant butler. Fate seems to side with her, for just then, his voice drips with disdain as he humiliates a servant. Herace hides in the shadows, pulse quickening as the butler approaches. If he discovers her, everything could unravel. But before fear consumes her, a gentle hand rests on her shoulder. She freezes, then turns, and it's Zenon. And for a moment, everything feels different. "We've missed you, Zenon." Zenon's gaze lingers on Herace with confusion when he notices the maid's uniform draped over her. Before he can utter a word, she presses her hand gently over his mouth, silencing him. What she doesn't realize is how that single gesture sends warmth rushing to his ears. His heartbeat quickens, betraying him. Thump, thump, thump. Almost like fate intervening, an attendant rushes to the butler with news that the young master is missing. But when the butler responds, Zenon freezes, disbelief flooding his eyes. Did he just hear his own butler call him a brat? Later, in the quiet of the mansion's library, Zenon and Herace face each other. The weight of betrayal hangs in the silence as Zenon struggles to process what he has heard. Herace, understanding his turmoil, admits she too once trusted the butler completely. If she, an outsider, feels this sting, how much more must Zenon suffer, the boy who grew up under his care? The wounds cut deep. Poor Zenon. But then Zenon's attention shifts. He notices the strange mark on Herace's wrist and lifts it toward the light, his eyes narrowing. Could she be a mage? Herace, unsure of the truth herself, masks her unease with a nervous laugh. She assures him that if she truly were one, he would have sensed it already. The thought lingers, but it makes sense. For now. Their conversation returns to darker matters. Herace reveals her suspicion that the butler may be tied to Marquess. She recounts what she saw in the basement, pieces of the truth that begin to align. Suddenly, the library door swings open. The butler steps in, feigning concern for the young master. Instantly, Zenon and Herace shift, masking their unease, playing along with his false sincerity. Soon after, as they attempt to leave the mansion, a knight intercepts them, sternly forbidding Zenon from personal outings. Zenon does not protest. He complies with a calm grace, smiling softly at Herace as he gestures for her to return inside. Herace nods, conceding to the moment, but within her, a new fire burns. The butler is hiding something. She is certain of it. With quiet resolve, Herace turns to Zenon and makes her bold proposal that she will find a way to separate Marquess from the butler. Without force, without laying a finger on either of them, she will outmaneuver their wicked schemes. We're rooting for you, Queen! And now, the stage is set. The scene follows Herace as she sets her plan into motion, this time with Andrea at her side. They discuss that the butler may be entangled in the corruption of the Kashua order. That makes their next destination all the more critical. Count Infanta's tea party. Determined, Herace takes Andrea by the hand, instructing the attendants to work their magic. Tonight, they are both going to that party. Andrea stares at her in disbelief, as though Herace has completely lost her mind. But the plan is already in motion, and Herace will not back down. At last, after what feels like an eternity, their carriage halts before the Infanta mansion. Stepping out first is Herace, regal and composed as ever, followed by Andrea, dazzling but visibly uncomfortable. Her fairy grace cannot hide the struggle of enduring her elaborate outfit and towering heels. Poor Andrea! Someone please save her! Inside, Andrea clings to Herace's arm for balance, every step a silent plea for rescue. The grand hall rushes as Yulia Infanta takes the center stage, her beauty commanding the room. Her radiant smile widens at the sight of Herace and her mysterious companion. Without hesitation, Herace spins a convincing tale. She introduces Andrea as her pen pal from abroad, a timid young woman whose shyness can be excused by her foreign roots. These two are comical! To steer the conversation toward their true purpose, Herace explains that Andrea is seeking help for her gravely ill younger brother. The plea strikes a chord in Yulia's heart. With genuine warmth, she suggests visiting the temple and even offers to introduce Andrea to a priest. Perfect. Andrea leans into the role, her gratitude sincere, and together she and Herace edge closer to the heart of the truth. There is no retreat now. Herace is determined to unravel every secret the butler hides, and he will pay for betraying Zenon's trust. Days later, Herace returns to Zenon's side at the mansion. As they walk together down the hushed hallway, Zenon leads her not to his own study, but to the late Duke's private chamber. A door creaks open. What secrets lie waiting within? An old memory unfolds. A young Zenon stands inside his father's study, the room in disarray, when the late Duke enters with the butler at his side. Anger flickers in the Duke's eyes, ready to lash out, until little Zenon explains that he only wanted to be like his father, the great head of the house. The boy's words soften the Duke's sternness. With gentleness, he beckons his son to follow. A bright-eyed Zenon trails behind as his father delves into the study of sealing magic. The late Duke pauses, turning to his son with a solemn gaze. His words carry both weight and hope that Zenon must grow to become a magician greater than his own father. Back in the present, Herace watches Zenon's back with quiet sorrow. She knows the pain gnawing at him. The butler he trusted since childhood has revealed himself to be a traitor. What wound could cut deeper than betrayal by the very person you trusted with your life? Yet Zenon remains silent. He continues rifling through his father's belongings until his hand closes on a drawer filled with relics. Among them lies a crystal. The moment he lifts it, an immense, overwhelming power surges through the room. Herace's heart races with dread. Then, to her horror, Zenon clutches his chest, coughing blood, his body racked with pain. Herace rushes to his side, tears brimming as she calls out desperately, pleading for his life as if her voice alone could hold him together. Meanwhile, the capital buzzes with shocking news that a mana-sealing crystal has been discovered in the Langbird estate. Fury ripples through the Council of Gentlemen, who immediately demand answers from Marquess. Before accusations can take root, Marquess swiftly explains that the sealing crystal was the creation of his late brother, Zenon's father. Because Zenon was born with more mana than his body could endure, the Duke dedicated his life to devising a way to restrain it. These crystals, he insists, were designed to absorb that overwhelming power. But suspicion lingers. The gentlemen remain unconvinced of Marquess's innocence. Instead, they turn their compassion toward the young master, acknowledging the heavy burden Zenon has borne since birth, heavier than any mage of his age. To them, Marquess no longer seems fit to guard him. With grave resolve, they reach their decision that Zenon will be relocated to the Odalin Mansion. Days pass at the Odalin Mansion, where Herace remains faithfully by Zenon's side. He has been unconscious for what feels like an eternity, and fear gnaws at her. What if she had been even a second too late? Would she have lost him forever? After Zenon's collapse, the Langbird estate was sealed off, and Zenon was moved into the grandest residence in the capital, the Odalin Mansion, once meant for Duke Yandere. Marquess Velx was forced to vacate, leaving Zenon to rise as its new master. Yet despite how neatly events seem to fall into place, Herace cannot shake the weight of despair she looks upon Zenon's fragile state. Her heart aches, until a gentle touch wipes her tears away. A familiar soft voice reaches her ears. Zenon is awake. Relief floods her as she throws her arms around him, clinging tightly, unwilling to let go. Zenon explains that his reckless choice was not without purpose. He sought to break free from his uncle's grasp, even if it meant gambling with his life. And through it all, he admits he endured only because she never left his side. Herace, flustered and red-cheeked, quickly masks her emotions with playful reproach, scolding him for making her worry so deeply. But beneath her teasing lies a vow. Herace cannot and will not watch him collapse before her again. With quiet conviction, she tells Zenon that from this moment, they are no longer just childhood playmates. They are true friends. Zenon gazes at her with a warmth he cannot hide, his heartbreak quickening as he clasps her hand and agrees, his smile lingering on her radiant, innocent face. Later that day, Andrea arrives with vital news from her visit to the temple. She has uncovered the truth that the butler is indeed working as a priest of the Kashua order. Their wealth and power flow from something called holy blood, a substance rumored to be the blood of a god, revered for its miraculous healing powers. Herace listens carefully, her expression hardening with resolve. Then, with steady hands, she places a heavy pouch of gold before Andrea, declaring that she will need it for the mission that lies ahead. Their alliance has only just begun, and who knows what dangers and triumphs it will bring next? And that's it for today, guys. What did you think? As always, don't forget to like the video and comment for the next part so we know you want more. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for updates. See you in the next one!